In this episode of Culture at the Core, we are interviewing Christopher Newell, Director of the Native American Cultural Programs here at UConn. After conducting additional research, we understand that in studies conducted at other universities, most students feel that cultural centers help them feel more prepared to work in a diverse work setting. Additionally, a positive correlation between students who utilize cultural center programs and those who engage in civic engagement has been seen. Finally, at primarily white universities, some students have reported feeling that while cultural centers are advertised in a way that draws students of many backgrounds, they do not always serve their intended purpose. In this episode, we will be utilizing the information collected from the prior research and trying to understand how this applies to the role of cultural centers at UConn, more specifically the Native American cultural programs. Okay, so the first question is, what resources does your cultural center provide for the students of UConn?
Well, one of the things I would clear up first is that we're not a cultural center, we're a cultural program, and there is a difference between the two here at UConn. It's kind of a hierarchy. Cultural centers are much more robust in what they're able to offer versus a cultural program. But still, even with that, we are able to offer a lot of support for Native students here at this campus. We have two mentorship programs. One is called UCINCI, which is a mentorship program for hopeful incoming students, for our students that are current today, to mentor a potential incoming Native student. And then there's also the Unison Mentorship Program, which is for upperclassmen and NACP students to mentor some of the incoming first-year students. So we have the mentoring programs. We also have, through some of the foundation money that we've been able to raise over the years, we have money to be able to send students, NACP students, to things that would help their major, say for instance a conference or something like that. So there is a little bit of financial help that's also offered here as well. But the space is really, this space itself is itself a resource. It's kind of a base where Native students can come in and authentically be themselves. Where sometimes it might not feel like that in other spaces on this campus. So I would include the NACP space here on the first floor of the student union as one of those resources that we offer. Is they can come in, they can see a Native director here, somebody that has experiences that are on par with experiences they've had through life, so that way they have somebody that's familiar that they can work with to get them and help them navigate this institution. We also do a lot of work with first year students, especially many Native students are first generation. So keeping them, after the first year is kind of a big thing that we look at as far as numbers. There's a lot of Native students that enter the college world and don't remain past a year. And so far, the Native students that we have here that are involved with the program have stayed, throughout all 4 years. So we have a high rate of keeping students here just with the level of support that we give them.
My next question is, to what extent do you believe the general population of UConn students understand the purpose and resources of this program?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's kind of a chicken and egg question, because there's not a lot of Native students on this campus. So why have a whole cultural program that may become a cultural center dedicated to that population? And one of the reasons for it would be that because there is a lack of the lack of Native students is as a result of UConn's previous lack of resources for them. There was no NACP before 2016. Or sorry, 2018. There wasn't places for Native students like myself who graduated here in 2014. There wasn't any support services whatsoever. that's a big deal when it comes to Native students trying to navigate a campus as big as University of Connecticut to not have those resources. And most students might wonder why we would service such a small percentage of the university. But what I will say is that as we continue to make a presence here and grow, then we will see an increase in the Native students, that would see that they have support services on campus here that would be applying to UConn. Native people make up 2% of the population, but make up less than something like 0.3% of the population here on the UConn campus. So we're not even making, we're not even on par with the ratios of Native people just in the general population here. So UConn has a long ways to go, and when that population does show up, there needs to be something here for them. But I think a lot of UConn students would kind of wonder why even put in the resources to such a small population at this time, not realizing that we have kind of a strategic plan to grow that population over time.
Okay, and then after conducting prior research, I discovered a study called College Students' Cultural Center Involvement in Civic Engagement, which concluded that there's a positive correlation between civic engagement and the use of cultural centers. Do you believe that the UConn students that are seen actively engaging with this program have also been seen participating in civic engagement activities?
Absolutely. One of the graduates of this program and one of the founders of NASA, Sage Phillips, became a Champions of Change Fellow through the Center for Native American Youth, which is a huge fellowship, and she's working for the Wabanaki Alliance in the state of Maine, which is a political advocacy group for the tribes all in the state of Maine. And so she's been able to use her fellowship to platform herself with the Wabanaki Alliance and continue to advocate for the rights of Wabanaki peoples within the state of Maine. So that's just one example. Another example would be Mashantucket Pequot student Samantha Gove. She has left, she graduated here and then entered law school because she wants to be able to work for her tribe on that level, on the legal level. And so the reasoning for that, once again, social change, try to make sure that the U.S. government is keeping up with its promises to Native peoples, making sure that laws are getting followed, the rights of her people are being recognized, amongst other things. And so I would say that there is a lot of advocacy that results as a result of being here, because when they're here, a lot of what they're doing is kind of advocacy to the entire campus of why NACP needs to be here. What purpose do we do as far as educating the general student campus public, or general student public about Native peoples in general. And then of course, even more deeper knowledge about the tribes that are in this particular geographic area itself. So there's lots of things that NACP does, when it comes to furthering that knowledge on this campus, and that's something that the students that work here and the students that are involved in NASA, just having to prove their existence makes them good advocates for things, and they tend to have a passion for different things, in their lives, usually pertaining to their tribes, and so they're oftentimes able to take what they learn here and then apply it back into their home communities, which has been a beautiful thing to see.
Another study I read about entitled Students' Perceptions of Ethnic and Multicultural Centers, which discusses how primarily white students feel that while cultural centers are used to draw in students from various backgrounds, they feel that the centers don't always serve their intended purpose, with 51% of first-year UConn students not being racial or ethnic minorities. Do you believe that your cultural program serves its intended purpose?
I believe so, yes, because The center here is not specifically closed off to just Native or Indigenous students. The center here is open from 10 to 5 every day for the entire Yukon campus. And we have a wide variety of students that come here every day, and so they become exposed to the programming that we're offering, amongst other things. And so, just because the fact that we are open to the entire campus, I think education-wise, and the comfort level that students of non-native ancestry that come into this place that they have, which is very high. It's a very welcoming space that we have here. I think that it opens their eyes to a lot of knowledge that they probably weren't taught about in their public school experience, especially when it comes to the existence of Native peoples of today. Because most people that grew up in the state of Connecticut especially never met a Native person in their life before they came here. And so they can come to this space, not only can they meet them, they can become friends, they can become study partners. You can come here and conduct an interview. So there's a valuable resource that we provide, along those routes.
One last question is, another study titled Cultural Competency Activities, the Impact on Student Success, concluded that students at universities with cultural programs feel better prepared to work in diverse work settings. How do you think your program benefits the students of UConn as a whole, not just the ones in this given culture?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the sadly the ignorance about Native peoples, the University of Connecticut has a very high rate of it. It's not the students' fault. It's kind of how the public education system is set up. You only learn about Native peoples in 3 different areas, essentially, in a public school. European discovery, which is written from one-sided perspective, of course. The Mayflower landing, which is once again mostly about the English and not much about the Wampanoag, and always puts them in the past. And then American westward expansion, and you hear about the Cherokee Trail of Tears, and some tribes moved to Oklahoma, and you don't hear much else. And so the level of ignorance of the average UConn student about Native peoples in this country and the state of things today in 2025 is actually very, very, very high. And once again, it's not the fault of the students that it's like that, and one of the things that we can do is we can help them combat that ignorance with knowledge, because last thing any UConn student wants to do is ask a question that would be potentially cringy. Which actually does happen from time to time. When I worked at the Pequot Museum, people born and raised in Connecticut would raise their hands politely and ask a very polite question, not meaning anything harmful. Are the Pequot still alive? Because all of their public education, they heard about the Pequot massacre, and that was about it. So they hear about them dying, they don't hear about their resilience and their survivance. And that's one of the things that we can change within the mindset of the UConn student as they go through their journey here at the University of Connecticut. We don't offer just programming in here. We have people like Chief Lynn Malerba, who has come to speak here in the Student Union Theater when she was U.S. Treasurer. We have offered halftime shows for the basketball teams the previous 3 years. Just couldn't afford it this year, but we may bring it back if the budget changes. So that brings an awareness to not just the UConn students that go to the games, but the alumni as well. Who the alumni, when they went here, there was nothing. And they're like, oh my God, there is something here, and there's something I could probably support too, so that it brings awareness to that, and so it's, like I said, it's a chicken and egg thing, as far as, like why support us, but then when you do support us, you start to see what actually comes as a result of it is greater knowledge, not just for the Native students on this campus, but also for the non-Native students on this campus, to have interaction with living Native students and learn about their lives, leave here with, without the ignorance that they entered with, which once again was not their fault, and so UConn can be a stepladder to increasing knowledge and increasing curiosity You know, because sometimes that's one of the things that we lack is we lack curiosity because we don't know where to look. And UConn is a great place for to teach people not everything, but teach people where are good places to go look to learn more.
Definitely. That was my last question. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
making time out of your day to be interviewed.
Yep.
To wrap up this episode of Culture at the Core, I would like to once again thank Christopher Newell for taking time out of his day to be interviewed and discussing his views on cultural programs and centers with me. All in all, this interview allows listeners as well as myself to conclude that cultural centers and programs play a massive role in the lives of students at universities such as UConn. Although the Native American population here at UConn is quite small, their impact is the exact opposite. The application of resources provided by programs like the Native American Cultural Programs allows students of this cultural background to be active members of their community and allows students of all backgrounds to become less culturally ignorant by learning and interacting with these people through these programs. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Culture at the Core and see you all next episode.